Hello, everybody, and welcome to Roleplay Thursday. Today, we are going to talk about dungeon mastering and how I, in particular, like to play as the dungeon master. Dungeon mastering basically is you being in control of a story that the players are going to be traversing through. You're the one who gets to make judgment calls on all the rules. You're the guy who has to build and create and make sure that every NPC has a story and a thought line and has a purpose. Whether or not the players actually pick up on any of those things is completely incidental. It's like if they happen to speak to this one NPC and ask about this one certain thing that maybe this NPC might care about, you have to be prepared to be able to do that for any NPC that the players want to talk to. At least that's how it is for me. Okay, so backing up. I got ahead of myself really fast there. I'm sorry about that. Backing up. As the DM, you are creating the story that the players are going to be going through. You create the world around them, basically, and everything that they're going to have to face. That doesn't make you their enemy. If anything, that's just for me personally. There are some DMs who like to see it as being a challenge. Like, I have created this death trap. It is now you as the players who have to get through this death trap and fight this end world Cthulhian thing at the end that is completely unfair. And you have to find your way through it somehow, and if you die, you die. You just stay dead. You have to roll a new character at level 1. And I don't do that 100%. I do a little. I do little. That's the best way to DM, in my opinion, is just do a little. Do a little sadism, but mostly do the other stuff. What I like to focus on personally is because I'm really into lore and I'm really into story. That's what I like to do. I like to world build from the ancient history of this giant mountain all the way back to the daily chores of a single NPC in a single town of a kingdom's land. You know, all manner of world building. That's what I enjoy to do, and I more or less just let my characters, let my players run free in this world. I mean, things are happening, obviously, because it's a world. It's moving forward, and with it being a fantasy world, you have so much more freedom to have different sorts of things happen. It's like it almost makes real world problems boring, and I think that not at all helps me personally for real world problems to be getting boring, because I can create so much better ones, so many better problems in my fantasy world. It's like, oh, you're racist against someone with a different skin pigmentation. How about I make you racist against people with tentacle faces? There's something to be racist about. How exactly do you do your daily functions when your fingers don't have bones and instead they are just wiggling appendages that you have only semi-control over? How do you zip up your pants in the morning? I don't know what's wrong with me today. But yeah, so I prefer to do a lot of world building. So that's mostly where I put all of my energy into. I'll create NPCs that have in-depth backstories. I'll create families that actually behave like families. Parents that love each other, children who are snots and have to be punished in some way. And with it being a medieval fantasy, usually that means getting hit or spanked or getting sent to do like really bad chores. That sort of stuff. So I see it as a personal victory, not when a player dies or when a boss gets the better of them and manages to succeed in his evil plan, although that is satisfying. I get most of my enjoyment when the players actually care about an NPC or about this thing that's happening. If they care, then I feel like I've succeeded. I'll give you a great example. Not too long ago, we did a campaign where one of my players was playing as a paladin, and he was a part of a smaller paladin group, like a squad, basically. And during his adventures, he had to split from his squad, which were all NPCs, and he had to go with the other players to go deal with this thing. During the course of events, while he was away, the village in which the squad was in charge of defending was attacked by a demon, and he arrived, and as soon as he heard this, he turned around and he brought the characters back, and he went back to defend the town. But there were so many of them, and he wasn't able to get to his squad in time, and one of them died, and he was actually torn up about it. And it was made all the worse because, of course, I went into this character's backstory. He was a monk. He took a vow of silence, but he still had relations. He was actually in love with another member of the squad, and even though they'd never shared, those emotions with each other, she actually shared them. So when he died, and they never got the chance to tell each other how they felt about one another, it made it all the more sour because the rest of the squad was even more torn up than the player was, but the player was still torn up because of all of this that had happened. And I don't want to say he didn't know, but he'd never really explored too deep into their backstory. They were just his comrades up until that point. They were friends, to be sure, but he never, sat down with them and talked about their feelings. Not that he could, considering that he was a monk that took the vow of silence, but it was just something that went unexplored until it was too late, and it made the death of this NPC crippling. And I'm so happy. I'm still really happy that he cared about this NPC that much that it actually tore him up. It's things like that make me really want to care. Another good example is an enemy that they fought a long time ago, completely different campaign. There was this girl who was trying to raise an army of eldritch abominations to take over this town, and they didn't really care about the town, but this woman was thwarting them at every turn, making sure everything they did was a huge hassle. And when they finally fought, she ended up getting some really good rolls, and she ended up seriously injuring the same person. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of weird, but she ended up injuring this person and just beat back the rest of the party and managed to escape. And the whole party was just seething with rage, and I love it. They cared. They wanted to kill this person so badly. They just wanted to abandon the rest of the story and spend the rest of the campaign just hunting her down. And I had to pull them back and be like, how? You could track her to be sure, but they were in the middle of an underground dungeon, and she was using a teleport crystal to hop to different locations. They had no way of tracking her yet, and I had to promise them that there will come a time in the future where you will be able to track her down. But it isn't yet. I guess that's sort of railroading. Railroading is this thing where you force the party to go down a particular path. You don't allow them to branch out into a completely different direction, which you had already created as the DM. Which, a lot of DMs frown upon. I frown upon it a little bit, but sometimes you need to guide them in the right direction. And it doesn't have to be, no, you're not allowed to do this. I find it smarter to be like, you can do that, but I don't think it's very smart right now. It's like, things like that. It's like, not telling them they can't, but advising them against it as the creator of the game. Because, to be perfectly honest, it would take me maybe 2 or 3 days to create the next part of the story if they wanted to do that, but I already have something else ready for them that would help them achieve the same goal. So I have to be like, you can do that now if you want to, but it probably wouldn't be a very good idea. It might be a better idea to instead go down this course of action, and maybe that'll help you somewhere down the line. So that's how I DM. I try to guide the characters in the right direction. I try to help them out whenever possible, and I don't mean fudging the roles. I mean, every DM fudges the roles a little bit. That's just something that has to happen. RNG is a horrible thing. But it's the thing that makes the game fun, is the fact that things can go wrong at any moment. That's the element that adds tension to otherwise a board game, basically. So, you need RNGesus a little bit, but you can twist it to be a little bit better. Like if everyone's rolling ones, you can say, you know what, let's not use that dice anymore. Let's negate that one and let you roll again, or let you roll a different dice just to move on, just to get it out of the way. And sometimes as the DM, you don't have to tell the party that you're doing that. It's like, oh, I'm playing as a character that's helping the party. I do that a lot. I make characters that help the party because the party doesn't always want to create a well-rounded, well-adjusted party. Sometimes they forget that they need a healer, or sometimes they don't think they do need a healer, and then they get to the point where, oh crap, I actually needed a healer, not for healing, but for this other thing that only a healer could have done. Like, maybe they have natural regeneration, and they don't think they need a healer, because, hey, I can just regenerate. I don't need any of that. But then they get to a part where they are confused, or they've contacted a plague, or they get sick. You know, it happens. It happens in long adventures. Sometimes a person will get sick, and you're like, oh, how do I get not sick? Well, you can either wait 4 or 5 days in game, which a lot can happen in my games in a few days of not doing anything. So that's not a great idea. Or you can find a healer. Why don't I have a healer all the time? You said you didn't need one. So sometimes I'll play a healer. So say I'm trying to help a healer, and I'm rolling to cure said sickness, and oh no, I actually did roll a 4. So that's not good enough. Oh, look at that, a 19. You know, just to get things out of the way. And to help the party whenever possible. I don't do it to hurt the party unless the thing that's going to hurt the party now is actually going to help the party in the long run. Like falling down a trapdoor. Let's say the party falls down a trapdoor and they're trying to jump over it, and the trap is not readily visible. So one person who's run off way ahead, because of course they have, they see the trap and they skirt around it and they just keep going. And the next party member, he's not good at finding traps. He rolls perception to see if there's a trap, and I'll say the DC is an 18. He rolls a 16. He doesn't see one, but he's a halfling. So technically, if he walked over the trap, he doesn't weigh that much. Maybe he won't fall in. Maybe I'll fudge the dice so that he does, because he's going to fall into the pit that just so happens to be right above where the other character is, and we can speed this along and get the party back together before someone does something really dumb. That's how I like to DM. Help the party whenever possible. Make sure that the game is fun and engaging. Make sure there is challenge to it, a little bit of sadism, and fudge the rules with wild abandon to make sure that the game is fun for everybody. Sometimes you have to make a harsh ruling, but when I make a harsh ruling, I try to tell them another way that they can succeed. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't allow you to attack 4 times when it's a standard action. I mean, not only does it not make any sense, but I just can't allow that sort of thing to happen. So instead, maybe you ask your other party members to help you, or maybe you want to do this crazy combat maneuver, but you get 1 dice roll too low, and maybe your party members right next to you say, "Hey, why don't you help him because he's failed by only a little bit." Do that. At least that's what I do. So that's how I DM. That's how I like to have fun. The rules are there for me to bend and break with wild abandon because it's fun for everybody. At least I hope it is. They seem like they're having fun.